The USS Yorktown sank in 1942, and for more than 8 decades, most people thought her story was over. A catastrophic end, marked by the brutal ballet of steel shrapnel flying everywhere. The mainmast, a towering sentinel, took a direct hit, toppling down onto the ship's deck before crashing overboard into the churning sea. A battered carrier, her hull scarred, engaged in a desperate fight for survival, ultimately succumbing to a final, devastating blow that sent her beneath the waves. Then, a discovery. "Oh yeah, oh wow," a voice echoes, filled with a profound sense of awe. "Oh yeah, that's her." But when a deep-sea drone finally reached her resting place, the footage it relayed back to the surface showed things nobody expected to survive. Evidence, remarkably preserved, that now forces historians to fundamentally rethink everything about her last, harrowing hours. This was the carrier the Navy bet everything on. Yorktown was born out of a long stretch of trial and error, a testament to evolving naval dock carriers, one by one, each iteration a lesson learned. First came the USS Langley, a vessel that was, in truth, an old collier, a coal ship, repurposed with a flat deck laid atop her original structure. A rudimentary beginning. Then arrived the mighty converted battlecruisers, the USS Lexington and the USS Saratoga. Fast, formidable, but inherently heavy, these leviathans were never conceived as carriers from their inception. Their conversion, while impressive, highlighted the compromises of retrofitting. Next, the USS Ranger, the very first purpose-built aircraft carrier. Her construction, however, revealed a critical flaw. A small ship with a limited flight deck was simply too cramped for the kind of robust air groups the Navy envisioned for future conflict. More strategic games played at the Naval War College, coupled with invaluable real-sea trials conducted with these early experimental ships, all pushed the Navy towards a singular, unifying idea. The imperative was clear. Large, fast carriers, capable of accommodating a substantial air group, yet robust enough to absorb significant damage without immediate catastrophic failure. The USS Yorktown was the progenitor of this new, vital lineage. She was the lead ship of a groundbreaking 3-carrier class, meticulously constructed at Newport News, Virginia. Her formidable hull stretched a little over 820 feet from bow to stern and measured a little over 109 feet across at her widest point. Fully loaded, she displaced an impressive 25,000 long tons. 4 powerful steam turbines, fed by 9 high-pressure boilers, could propel her to approximately 37 miles per hour, a critical speed, fast enough to launch and recover aircraft efficiently, and still agile enough to dodge incoming torpedoes and bombs. Her vast hangar and flight deck were serviced by 3 colossal elevators, designed to swiftly lift and lower planes between decks. In peacetime, she typically carried around 90 aircraft and a dedicated crew of a GDK 1,200 officers and men. Inside, her very architecture was designed to maximize survivability under duress. The hull was ingeniously divided into numerous small watertight compartments. This compartmentalization meant that a blast GDK DUT flood in one isolated space would be effectively contained by robust steel GDK walls and sealed doors. Fuel tanks, a vulnerable point, were strategically placed in protected layers deep within the ship's core. Furthermore, a network of pumps was cleverly distributed GDK-1 section flooded. Other pumps could GDK move water out, buying precious time. Yorktown also boasted an early radar set, a revolutionary piece of technology that could spot incoming aircraft far beyond the visual horizon. And in a stroke of innovative engineering, she utilized carbon dioxide to flood specific parts of the aviation fuel system. This ingenious measure prevented gasoline vapors from accumulating, ensuring that a small leak would not escalate into a devastating, ship-killing fire. Her design was a testament to foresight, a vessel built not just for battle, but to endure the very worst it could offer. Yet, even the most meticulously engineered marvels can fall, leaving behind ghosts and questions, waiting for the deep to reveal their truth. In the nascent years of a world teetering on the precipice of global conflict, the very essence of naval strategy was undergoing a profound metamorphosis. What once defined maritime power, the colossal battleship, was giving way to a new, formidable force, the aircraft carrier. And it was in this crucible of evolving doctrine that the USS Yorktown emerged, a vessel designed not merely for engagement, but for a new kind of warfare, a new way GK power, a new way to buy time in the brutal calculus of battle. Her keel was laid in the mid-1930s, a period of escalating international tension. Launched in the spring of 1937, her christening was an event of national significance, graced by none other than the First Lady, Eleanor Roosevelt herself. This was no mere ceremonial gesture. It was a clear, emphatic declaration that this revolutionary class of ship, with its vast, flat deck and its promise of aerial might, mattered profoundly at the highest echelons of American leadership. It signaled a strategic shift, an acknowledgement that the future of naval dominance might well belong to the skies above the waves, rather than the guns upon them. Our complex systems to life. And after her rigorous shakedown cruises and initial test voyages proved her seaworthiness and combat potential, Yorktown formally entered service. Her initial operational deployment saw her patrolling the vast, often turbulent waters of the Atlantic Ocean. This was before the United States was irrevocably drawn into the maelstrom of the Second World War. For long, arduous days, she undertook critical neutrality patrols, a silent, watchful guardian of American interests. Her routes stretched from the frigid, fog-shrouded Grand Banks off Newfoundland, southward through the warmer currents towards the strategic archipelago of Bermuda, and deep into the sun-drenched, politically charged waters of the Caribbean. Her mission during these tense pre-war years was multifaceted: to meticulously monitor vital sea lanes for any signs of belligerent activity, to discreetly shadow suspicious vessels that might threaten Allied shipping or American security, and, perhaps most importantly, to show the flag. This was a potent, if silent, display of American resolve and power, a clear signal to any potential aggressor that while the nation fervently sought to remain aloof from the burgeoning global conflict, its interests and its ability to defend them were undeniable. It was a delicate, precarious balance, maintaining vigilance without provocation, a constant test of nerve and judgment for her crew. But this carefully maintained equilibrium shattered with brutal suddenness. The world changed overnight, irrevocably, on the morning of December 7, 1941, with the devastating Japanese attack on Pearl Harbor. The thunderous assault on America's Pacific Fleet, particularly its cherished battleships, reverberated across the globe. At that very moment of cataclysm, the Yorktown lay anchored safely in Norfolk, Virginia, thousands of miles from the inferno in Hawaii. Her survival, and that of her sister carriers, would prove to be one of the most critical, if accidental, strategic advantages America possessed in the immediate aftermath of the attack. The call to action was immediate, unambiguous, and urgent. Within mere days of the Pearl Harbor tragedy, Yorktown received orders to redeploy, to sail westward to the Pacific. Her journey was swift and purposeful. She transited the engineering marvel that is the Panama Canal, a vital artery connecting two oceans, a testament to American ingenuity now pressed into wartime service. She reached San Diego, a bustling hub for the Pacific Fleet, and almost immediately, her status elevated. She was designated the flagship of Task Force 17, a pivotal formation in the nascent, desperate struggle against the surging tide of Japanese expansion. From that moment forward, the Yorktown was no longer a vessel undergoing trials or performing peacetime duties. She was no longer a testbed for new technologies or a symbol of naval power in reserve. She was transformed, thrust into the crucible of active combat, her very existence a critical component of America's ability to retaliate. She was one of only a handful of big decks, the massive, essential aircraft carriers that the United States had left to strike back against an enemy that had demonstrated terrifying efficiency and overwhelming force. The survival of these carriers meant the survival of any hope for immediate counteroffensive in the Pacific. The early months of 1942 were a period of desperate struggle for the Allies, a time when the strategic initiative lay almost entirely with Japan. Yet, even amidst this relentless advance, Yorktown began to carve out a new identity, that of a raid ship. Her mission shifted from defensive patrol to offensive harassment. In February, she spearheaded crucial strikes on the Marshall and Gilbert Islands, hitting vital Japanese bases and installations beyond the capabilities of the then-depleted American forces. Instead, the objectives were more insidious, more psychological: to shake enemy confidence, to inflict material damage by sinking ships and destroying aircraft, and, crucially, to force Japan to disperse its formidable forces, thereby weakening their concentrated power. Just a few weeks later, in early March, Yorktown teamed up with her sister carrier, the USS Lexington, for one of the most audacious and brilliantly executed maneuvers of the early war. Their planes launched a daring raid, flying over the formidable, jagged spine of New Guinea, a perilous journey across towering mountains and dense, uncharted jungle, to strike Japanese shipping and airfields at Lae and Salamaua, situated on the island's far northern coast. It was a strike from an entirely unexpected direction, bypassing the heavily defended approaches, a testament to the courage of the pilots and the innovative thinking of their commanders. The raid inflicted significant damage and sent a clear message: American naval air power, though bruised, was far from broken. By the time the Japanese Empire began its inexorable push further into the South Pacific, aiming to solidify its gains and expand its defensive perimeter, the Yorktown was no longer an untested newcomer. She was a proven combat ship, her crews hardened by the crucible of battle, her aircraft having flown countless sorties against a determined enemy. Her reputation was growing, a symbol of resilience in a time of overwhelming adversity. The next, and perhaps most critical crisis for Yorktown, and the entire Allied effort in the Pacific, unfolded in the vast, contested expanse of the Coral Sea. Japanese planners, with their eyes fixed on a grand strategy of isolating Australia, sought to seize Port Moresby, a crucial Allied stronghold on the southern coast of New Guinea. Its capture would not only threaten the northern reaches of Australia directly, but would also effectively choke off vital supply routes, severing the lifeline to Allied forces in the region. It was a move that, if successful, could alter the entire trajectory of the war in the Pacific. To thwart this audacious thrust, the United States committed its most precious assets. Yorktown and Lexington were dispatched, forming the core of a hastily assembled task force, their mission starkly clear: to intercept and engage the Japanese invasion fleet at sea. It would be the first naval battle in history where opposing surface ships never sighted each other. The fighting conducted entirely by aircraft launched from distant carriers. In early May of 1942, amidst the swirling chaos of the Coral Sea, Yorktown's air group, flying alongside their counterparts from Lexington, helped to inscribe a legendary line into the annals of naval history. Dive bombers, plummeting from the skies above, launched from her decks, located the Japanese light carrier Shoho. With devastating precision, they unleashed their payload, turning the smaller carrier into a fiery wreck. In the heat of the moment, as the enemy ship succumbed to the relentless assault, one pilot, exhilarated and triumphant, radioed back the now immortal words, "Scratch one flat top." It was a phrase that encapsulated the raw, visceral satisfaction of a vital blow struck, a moment of fleeting victory in a war that demanded so much more. The very next day, the titanic struggle continued. Planes from both Yorktown and Lexington engaged the larger, more formidable Japanese fleet carriers, Shokaku and Zuikaku. It was a brutal, swirling aerial ballet of destruction, a desperate exchange of blows across miles of ocean. The Shokaku bore the brunt of the American attack, her flight deck taking heavy damage, rendering her temporarily inoperable. Forced to withdraw, she was effectively removed from the immediate battle, a crucial setback for the Japanese offensive. Yet even as the smoke cleared over the Coral Sea, the true cost of victory and the relentless demands of war were becoming agonizingly clear. For in the crucible of such conflicts, every triumph, every hard-won moment of advantage is often paid for in blood and sacrifice, a testament to the fragile line between victory and oblivion. And as the Yorktown sailed onward, her destiny intertwined with the fate of nations, the lessons of the Coral Sea would serve as a stark prelude to an even greater, more decisive confrontation that lay just beyond the horizon. For in the relentless march of history, the echoes of one battle inevitably fade into the thunder of the next, each one a desperate gamble to secure a future that is never guaranteed. The skies above the Coral Sea still smoldered, a testament to the ferocity of the recent engagement. Though the immediate threat to Port Moresby had been repelled, the cost was staggering. The formidable Japanese carrier Zuikaku, her flight deck scarred and her air wing decimated, was no longer a viable fighting force. Her aircraft, once a symbol of imperial might, were shattered, rendering her impotent in the coming storm. With her withdrawal, the ambitious Japanese push toward Port Moresby, a strategic gateway to Australia, was decisively called off, a crucial, if temporary, victory for the Allied forces. On paper, the Battle of the Coral Sea appeared to be a strategic triumph, a successful defensive stand against a determined aggressor. Yet for the American fleet, the cost borne by the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown was far more profound, far more debilitating than mere casualty figures could ever convey. Her wounds ran deep, threatening to sideline her at the most critical junction. During the relentless aerial assaults, a single, devastating, armor-piercing bomb, weighing approximately 550 pounds, had ripped through Yorktown's flight deck. It struck with terrifying precision, just 15 feet inward from the island's imposing structure, carving a path of destruction downwards through 50 feet of steel and vital compartments before detonating with an earth-shattering roar directly above the forward engine room. The resultant blast was catastrophic. It obliterated 6 critical compartments, plunged 3 entire decks into chilling darkness as lighting systems failed, and violently warped more than 20 major hull frames, twisting the very skeleton of the ship. But the ordeal was far from over. Near misses from other bombs, though not direct hits, unleashed concussive forces that tore open seams in her hull between key structural frames. Fuel tanks ruptured, spewing their contents into the ocean, leaving a telltale, long, rainbow-colored oil slick stretching for approximately 10 miles in her wake as she limped away from the battle zone, a visible trail of vulnerability. Further compounding her plight, she lost her crucial radar capabilities, effectively blinding her, and suffered significant damage to parts of her cooling systems, threatening to cripple her machinery. Rear Admiral Aubrey Fitch, a seasoned veteran who had been aboard the Yorktown during the harrowing ordeal, surveyed the wreckage with a heavy heart. His professional assessment was grim. Full repairs in a Navy yard would demand at least 90 days, 3 long months, a lifetime in the accelerating tempo of war. As the battered carrier began her arduous, long run back to the relative safety of Pearl Harbor, the ship's own indomitable damage control teams sprang into action. They were a testament to naval resilience, performing miracles under immense pressure. With incredible ingenuity and tireless effort, they patched the gaping hole in the flight deck so meticulously, so cleanly, that from an aerial perspective, it appeared almost untouched, a testament to their dedication to maintaining her operational facade. They managed to keep one vital boiler functioning, ensuring just enough steam pressure for basic, essential systems to operate. And, against all odds, they forced the severely battered hull to hold a remarkably steady speed of about 20 miles per hour, despite the constant, insidious ingress of seawater through her ruptured seams. Even with these Herculean efforts, the prevailing expectation among their many months, while other, less damaged carriers would be left to bear the brunt of the escalating fight, there was a palpable sense of resignation. Yet, even as the Yorktown slowly made her way across the vast Pacific, a different kind of battle was unfolding thousands of miles away. In the clandestine world of intelligence, officers in Hawaii were piecing together a mosaic of information, seeing something profoundly different and deeply disturbing within the intercepted Japanese radio traffic. At Station Hypo, nestled within the sprawling naval base at Pearl Harbor, Commander Joseph Rochefort and his brilliant team of codebreakers had achieved a monumental breakthrough. They had cracked key, critical parts of the Japanese naval code, unlocking secrets that would prove pivotal to the war's trajectory. Hour after hour, day after day, they meticulously analyzed the torrent of encrypted messages, and a recurring reference began to emerge. A mysterious target designated AF. The identity of AF was paramount. To confirm their suspicions, Rochefort's team devised a simple yet ingenious trick. They instructed the remote outpost of Midway Atoll to transmit an open, unencrypted radio message, a seemingly innocuous report stating that the island was critically short on fresh water due to a damaged distillation plant. The bait was set. Soon after, the intercepted Japanese messages began to report a startling piece of intelligence. AF is short of water. The confirmation was undeniable, absolute, and chilling. The sheer audacity of the Japanese plan was now laid bare. Midway Atoll was the next major target, and the attack, the codebreakers revealed, would come in the first days of June of 1942. Admiral Chester Nimitz, Commander-in-Chief of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, now faced a brutal mathematical problem. On the American side, he had only 2 operational fleet carriers ready to engage, the formidable Enterprise and the swift Hornet. The USS Saratoga remained out of action, still undergoing repairs after a crippling submarine attack months earlier. The USS Lexington, another vital asset, was gone, sunk in the fiery crucible of the Coral Sea. Against this depleted American force, the main Japanese carrier strike group would bring 4 of their most powerful fleet carriers, the very vessels that had unleashed the devastating surprise attack on Pearl Harbor just 6 months prior. Without the Yorktown, the United States would be forced to sail into the impending Battle of Midway with a mere 2 flight decks against the full might of the Imperial Japanese Navy's 4-carrier spearhead. The odds were stacked, the stakes impossibly high, and the fate of the Pacific hung precariously in the balance. In the unforgiving arithmetic of war, such a profound numerical disadvantage often dictated the ultimate outcome. The strategic calculus was stark. 3 American carriers against a formidable Japanese force of 4. For Admiral Chester Nimitz, commander of the U.S. Pacific Fleet, the arithmetic was unforgiving. He understood he simply did not have the luxury of choice, nor the time to wait for reinforcements. The USS Yorktown, battered and bruised from the recent Battle of the Coral Sea, was his only viable option, even if she was, by any conventional measure, far from battle-ready. Her survival, let alone her participation in the looming confrontation, represented an immense gamble, a desperate roll of the dice in the vast expanse of the Pacific. With a speed born of utter desperation, Yorktown steamed into Pearl Harbor a day ahead of schedule. Her arrival on May 27th, a testament to the urgency gripping the command. She eased into Dry Dock Number 1, a vital artery of the naval base. The scene was one of controlled chaos, a stark tableau of damage and impending effort. Even as the last of the water drained from the dock, leaving it merely ankle-deep around her massive hull, a flurry of inspectors in rubber boots were already treading the muddy floor, their eyes scanning every inch of her wounded steel. Admiral Nimitz himself, a man whose calm demeanor belied the immense pressure he bore, descended into the cavernous dry dock. He walked the length of the Yorktown's ravaged side, his gaze fixed on the grim evidence of war. He saw the long, jagged stretches of open seams, where the concussive force of near misses had mercilessly pounded and warped the ship's resilient steel. He noted the twisted frames, the visible strain etched into the very fabric of the hull, a testament to the brutal punishment she had endured. The sight was sobering, a stark reminder of the fragile line between survival and destruction. Then, turning to the assembled yard officers, his voice firm despite the gravity of the situation, Nimitz delivered his impossible command. The Yorktown had to be ready for battle in just 3 days. A profound, almost disbelieving silence descended upon the dock. The sheer audacity of the demand hung heavy in the air. Finally, Lieutenant Commander H.J. Fingstag, a seasoned hull repair specialist, swallowed hard, the weight of the impossible task settling upon him, and with a quiet resolve that belied the enormity of the challenge, he simply replied, "Yes, sir." It was a moment of profound commitment, a silent pledge to defy the limits of time and engineering. What unfolded in the subsequent 72 hours transcended the realm of a normal repair job. It was an emergency surgery performed on steel, a desperate resuscitation of a mortally wounded Leviathan. Within minutes of Nimitz's decree, the dry dock became a beehive of frenetic activity. Wave after relentless wave of shipyard workers, a veritable army of skilled hands, poured into the dock and swarmed up the gangways. In total, approximately 1,400 men were assigned to the Herculean task, their collective will focused on a single objective: They worked without respite, around the clock, in 3 grueling straight shifts, their determination fueled by the knowledge of what lay ahead. To sustain the ceaseless rhythm of welding machines and the pervasive glow of work lights, the Navy implemented an extraordinary measure: rolling blackouts across the city of Honolulu. This drastic step diverted precious electrical power from the civilian grid directly to the shipyard, underscoring the national priority of Yorktown's resurrection. Conventional repair methods, meticulous and time-consuming, were utterly abandoned. Instead of painstakingly fixing each open seam individually, crews adopted a radical, battlefield-inspired solution. They welded massive steel plates directly over the most severely damaged sections of the hull, effectively sealing multiple leaks at once, a crude but brutally effective shortcut to seaworthiness. Simultaneously, other specialized teams descended into the labyrinthine boiler rooms and engine spaces. Their mandate was not a full overhaul, but a targeted intervention. Fix only what was absolutely essential to propel the ship at battle speed. Some of the worst damaged boiler units and deeper, more complex machinery remained stubbornly offline, their intricate repairs demanding weeks, even months of dedicated effort. There simply was no time for such luxuries. The risk was enormous, the compromise undeniable. Yet it was a calculated gamble born of necessity. When the monumental task was declared done, the Yorktown could not quite achieve her original top speed. Yet the miracle workers of Pearl Harbor had succeeded in restoring her to a state far superior to the 20 miles per hour she had managed after Coral Sea. She could now make sufficient headway to keep pace with the task force and, crucially, launch her aircraft into the wind, a vital requirement for carrier operations. It was a testament not to perfection, but to an extraordinary triumph of human will and ingenuity under unimaginable pressure. While welders and pipefitters waged their desperate battle against the clock below decks, staff officers embarked on another critical mission: rebuilding Yorktown's decimated air group. At Coral Sea, she had suffered grievous losses, not just of aircraft, but of irreplaceable, highly trained pilots and air crews. But the American Navy possessed a strategic flexibility that their Japanese adversaries, bound by more rigid doctrines, did not. The USS Saratoga, another large fleet carrier, was undergoing repairs on the West Coast after being torpedoed earlier in the year. Crucially, her air squadrons, though temporarily without a ship, were still available. In a remarkable display of adaptive strategy, the Navy made a bold decision. They transferred 3 of Saratoga's squadrons directly onto Yorktown, seamlessly blending the 2 air groups into a single, composite fighting force. This pragmatic approach ensured that every single parking spot on the flight deck and within the hangar would be filled with aircraft and their crews when she sailed. It was a testament to a system that valued operational readiness above doctrinal purity, a stark contrast to the Japanese, who would have kept Saratoga's squadrons together, awaiting their own ship's return. And so, on May 30th, a mere 3 days after she had limped into dry dock, the USS Yorktown, a patchwork of repaired steel and composite air power, steamed out of Pearl Harbor once more. She sailed not as a perfectly restored vessel, but as a testament to an indomitable spirit, a symbol of a nation's refusal to yield. Her journey into the vast, unforgiving Pacific was a voyage into the crucible of history, where the fate of a war, and perhaps the world, would soon be decided by the courage of men and the audacious ingenuity that had brought her back from the brink. Such moments, forged in the fires of desperation, often define the true character of nations and the enduring power of human endeavor. Her hull, a testament to recent brutal encounters, bore fresh scars, gaping wounds crudely patched with immense welded plates. These were the hastily applied bandages of war, a desperate attempt to staunch the bleeding from near-fatal blows just weeks prior. Her crew, a volatile yet essential blend of hardened veterans, their eyes reflecting the grim realities of combat, and fresh-faced new arrivals, still learning the rhythm and terror of naval warfare, navigated her decks. The engines, though grumbling and far from perfect, churned a defiant rhythm, propelling her forward. She was afloat, a miracle in itself. She was armed, bristling with the means to strike, and, crucially, she carried a full complement of warplanes, each a harbinger of destruction. Japanese commanders, lulled by a critical intelligence failure, remained convinced that the USS Yorktown was either sunk beneath the waves or crippled, removed from the war's calculus for many months to come. Their confidence, born of a swift and brutal engagement in the Coral Sea, was a dangerous delusion. Instead, defying all expectations, the Yorktown was already underway, a phantom ship steaming relentlessly towards their path, to intercept them off a tiny, unassuming atoll named Midway. The rushed repairs, the very bones of her structure, would soon face a trial far more severe, a crucible of fire and steel, than anyone on the Pearl Harbor docks could have possibly imagined. June 4th, 1942. Dawn broke over the vast, indifferent expanse of the Pacific, and with it, the USS Yorktown awoke, already enveloped in the ominous shadow of imminent danger. The strategic stage was set. Two American carrier groups, the spearheads of the Pacific Fleet, were spread across hundreds of miles of ocean, a thin, vulnerable line against the gathering storm. Task Force 16, centered around the formidable carriers Enterprise and Hornet, held one flank. The other, Task Force 17, formed around the Yorktown herself, serving as the precarious floating headquarters for Rear Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher, who carried the crushing weight of command on his shoulder. From the northwest, a formidable armada bore down upon them. 4 Japanese carriers, the Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, the very vessels that had unleashed devastation upon Pearl Harbor just 6 months prior, steamed with grim purpose. Both sides understood the profound existential stakes. Whoever lost their carriers in this engagement would almost certainly lose the entire Pacific War. This was not merely a battle. It was a gamble for the future of nations, a pivotal moment etched in the annals of human conflict. Just after dawn, the initial, desperate thrust came from the land-based aircraft of Midway Atoll. Torpedo planes and bombers, launched with a raw, unyielding courage, roared towards the approaching Japanese fleet. But their bravery alone was not enough. They were met by a brutal, unforgiving wall of defending Zero fighters and a relentless barrage of anti-aircraft fire. Wave after wave of American planes were torn from the sky, their crews vanishing into the vast ocean. Almost none of them scored a hit. The grim realization settled over the American command. Any real decisive damage to the Japanese fleet that morning would have to come from the 3 precious American carriers. Admiral Fletcher, a man of profound patience and tactical acumen, maintained a vigilant watch. His ship constantly turned into the wind, a ballet of engineering to facilitate the ceaseless cycle of launching and recovering scout planes and patrol fighters. He was searching, waiting, for that singular, fleeting opportunity to strike back with overwhelming force. Late in the morning, after hours of agonizing suspense, that chance finally materialized. A scout plane, launched from the Yorktown herself, its pilot straining against the vastness, finally sighted one of the Japanese carriers, the Soryu. The news crackled across the airwaves, electrifying the American fleet. Immediately, the Yorktown began the frantic yet meticulously choreographed process of readying her own strike group. Her dive bombers, the iconic Douglas SBD Dauntless aircraft of Bombing Squadron 3, lined up on the flight deck, their large centerline bomb racks heavy with 1,000-pound payloads. Below them, the slower, more vulnerable TBD Devastator torpedo planes of Torpedo Squadron 3 prepared to skim precariously low over the water. Their mission, a suicidal charge. When Yorktown's strike group finally reached the Soryu around midday, the Devastators, true to their grim destiny, again suffered catastrophic losses. Their low-altitude approach made them easy targets for the Japanese combat air patrol and anti-aircraft guns. Yet, their valiant, sacrificial attack served a critical purpose. It drew the Japanese fighters down, creating a momentary, fatal window of opportunity. From high altitude, almost unopposed, the dauntless dive bombers descended. Pilots, with a terrifying precision, rolled their aircraft over, plunging straight down in near-vertical dives towards the densely packed Japanese deck. 3 1,000-pound bombs, delivered with surgical accuracy, slammed into the Soryu. They punched through her flight deck, tearing gaping holes in her steel skin, and exploded with devastating force amidst fueled aircraft and stacks of ready ammunition. The inferno that erupted was immediate and uncontrollable. Flames, fed by aviation fuel and ordnance, spread with horrifying speed, consuming the ship from within. The crew, caught in a maelstrom of fire and secondary explosions, fought with desperate futility. But the conflagration was too vast, too intense. The Soryu was doomed, transformed in mere moments from a potent warship into a blazing pyre, a testament to the fragile line between victory and oblivion in the brutal calculus of naval warfare. The future, in that moment, hung by a thread, irrevocably altered by the courage of men and the unforgiving nature of the sea. The Pacific, 1942. A crucible of steel and fire, where the fate of empires hung precariously in the balance. Within minutes, the Japanese carrier Soryu, once a symbol of formidable naval power, was transformed into a burning wreck, a smoldering hulk, dead in the water and irrevocably doomed to sink beneath the waves. The inferno raged across her flight deck, consuming screams of the wounded mingled with the roar of uncontrolled fires as the ship became a tomb for hundreds of sailors trapped in the unfolding catastrophe. At nearly the same moment, in a synchronized ballet of destruction, separate strike groups launched from the American carrier Enterprise found their marks. Their bombs rained down with devastating precision upon the Japanese carriers Kagi and Kaga. The impact was immediate and catastrophic. Explosions ripped through their vast hangars, igniting fuel and munitions in a chain reaction of unimaginable violence. Black smoke billowed thousands of feet into the sky, visible for scores of miles, signaling the profound wounds inflicted upon these giants of the Imperial fleet. In only a few terrifying minutes, a mere fraction of an hour, 3 of Japan's 4 frontline aircraft carriers, the very spearhead of their naval might, were out of the fight. Crippled, burning, and sinking, their operational capacity had vanished in a maelstrom of American bombs and torpedoes. It was a strategic reversal of monumental proportions, a sudden, brutal shift in the balance of power that few could have predicted just hours earlier. Only one carrier, the Hiryu, remained operational, a solitary beacon of defiance in a sea of devastation. Her commander, Captain Tomeo Kaku, understood the gravity of the moment. The fate of the Imperial Japanese Navy, perhaps even the entire Pacific campaign, rested on his shoulders. The Hiryu now had a single clear target, a final desperate gamble to salvage victory from the jaws of impending defeat: the American carrier Yorktown. From the Hiryu's scorched flight deck, Captain Kaku launched a first strike, a desperate counterattack comprising approximately 18 Aichi D-3A Val dive bombers, each laden with its deadly payload, accompanied by a small yet determined escort of Mitsubishi A6M-0 fighters. These pilots, fueled by a potent mix of duty and vengeance, knew they were flying into the teeth of the enemy, their mission a do-or-die endeavor. As the strike force from Hiryu moved in, a silent sentinel of technology on the Yorktown awakened. Her relatively early radar set, a marvel of wartime innovation, picked up the incoming Japanese aircraft more than 20 miles away. The faint blips on the screen signaled an imminent threat, a warning that would prove invaluable. The carrier's fighter director, a man whose decisions would determine the survival of his ship, immediately scrambled her combat air patrol, a protective ring of Grumman F-4F Wildcat fighters that circled high overhead, ready to intercept any threat. Furious barrage of anti-aircraft fire from Yorktown and her escorting destroyers and cruisers shot down several of the attackers. The sky erupted in puffs of black flak and tracers, a deadly gauntlet for the Japanese pilots. But despite the valiant efforts, not all of them could be stopped. The sheer determination of the Japanese pilots, pressing through the relentless fire, meant that some got through. 3 bombs still got through. The first slammed into the flight deck just behind the forward elevator, ripping a gaping hole approximately 12 feet wide. The concussive blast and a deadly spray of metal fragments instantly killed and wounded gunners at nearby anti-aircraft mounts. Below decks, in the hangar, aviation fuel lines ruptured, and planes, still armed and fueled, ignited, sending an inferno roaring through the ship's vital internal spaces. A second bomb, perhaps more cunningly aimed, came in from the side, punching through the armored deck with terrifying force before exploding deep inside the ship's funnel system, the massive exhaust trunk for her boilers. This down-the-stack hit was particularly insidious. It not only smashed the critical exhaust paths, effectively suffocating the ship's engines, but also put out fires in several boilers, knocking out a significant portion of Yorktown's power and propulsion. The ship shuddered violently, her speed immediately dropping. The third bomb, the most dangerous of all, penetrated even deeper into the ship's vital organs, detonating near a rag storage room. The explosion ignited a stubborn, insidious fire, dangerously close to aviation gasoline tanks and ammunition magazines. The potential for a catastrophic secondary explosion, one that could tear the carrier apart from the inside, loomed large. For a moment, a pregnant, terrifying moment, Yorktown slowed almost to a stop, her massive form listing slightly as thick black smoke poured from her funnel, painting a grim portrait of a dying warship. Many crews, faced with such overwhelming damage, with the very heart of their ship pierced and burning, would have given up at that point, accepting the inevitable. But Yorktown's crew was not just any crew. Her captain, Elliot Buckmaster, a man of unwavering resolve, and his meticulously trained damage control teams refused to yield. This was not merely a ship. It was a symbol, a home, and a critical piece of the American war effort. With incredible speed and courage, the sailors sprang into action. They flooded the gasoline lines with inert carbon dioxide to choke off volatile vapors, preventing further explosions. Hangar sprinklers roared to life, dousing the burning aircraft. Men, their faces grim, dragged heavy hoses through choking smoke and suffocating heat, battling the stubborn fires inch by agonizing inch. Hatches were slammed shut, sealing off damaged compartments, containing the inferno and preserving the ship's watertight integrity. In the boiler rooms that were still working, engineers and firemen, drenched in sweat and gasping for breath in the oppressive heat and fumes, stayed valiantly at their posts, enduring unbearable conditions to keep at least some steam pressure going for the ship's basic systems. Their quiet heroism, often unseen, was the lifeline of the Yorktown. Within an astonishingly brief period, approximately 1 hour, the raging fires were brought under control, a testament to the sheer will and training of the crew. Steam slowly, agonizingly returned to the engines, and Yorktown began to gather speed, eventually reaching about 20 knots again. This was fast enough to stay with the task force and, crucially, to launch and recover planes. From a distance, her outward appearance was deceptively healthy. The deck crew, working with desperate urgency, patched the bomb damage with remarkable speed, covering the gaping holes with steel plates and wood. This ingenious improvisation was not merely for structural integrity. It was a deliberate act of camouflage, designed to deceive any returning Japanese pilots, ensuring they would not immediately perceive the true extent of the damage. Japanese pilots from Hiryu, flying back over the area after their devastating strike, observed a damaged carrier below. But what they saw, what they reported, was a ship that, despite the obvious scars, was still operating. A ship that was still throwing up a plume of smoke. A ship that, against all odds, seemed to be recovering. This perception, born of clever deception and incredible resilience, would prove to be a pivotal miscalculation in the unfolding drama of the Battle of Midway. For in the crucible of conflict, perception can be as potent as reality, and the will to endure, a force more powerful than any weapon. The smoke, a vast, dark plume against the Pacific sky, had barely begun to dissipate when observers and the Japanese attack force saw it. A carrier, still moving, defiant in the face of what should have been a death blow. Such was the extent of the damage, the sheer volume of smoke and fire, that many of them mistakenly believed they were witnessing two distinct American ships, an illusion born of the USS Yorktown's incredible tenacity. Yet, the initial brutal assault had only crippled her. It had not broken her spirit, nor her ability to resist. But the enemy, relentless and precise, was not finished. Having confirmed their target's continued, albeit faltering, existence, the Japanese struck again. Her second wave, a deadly formation, comprised approximately 10 Nakajima B-5N Kate torpedo bombers. Each aircraft, a harbinger of destruction, carried a single potent torpedo slung menacingly beneath its belly. A weapon designed not to burn, but to rip the very heart out of a ship. These elite Japanese pilots executed a maneuver of chilling tactical brilliance, approaching the Yorktown from both port and starboard simultaneously. It was a cruel, impossible dilemma for Captain Elliot Buckmaster and his crew. If the mighty carrier were to turn sharply to evade the incoming torpedoes on one side, she would, with grim certainty, pivot directly into the path of the deadly steel fish hurtling towards her from the other. There was no escape, no angle of approach that offered true sanctuary. Despite the insurmountable odds, Captain Buckmaster tried anyway. With a desperate command, he threw the massive vessel into a series of violent, hard turns, the ship groaning and tipping precariously as the helmsman struggled to obey, attempting to point the bow directly into the frothing, incoming trails in the water. The strategy was deceptively simple. If the ship could face a torpedo head-on, presenting its narrowest profile, it would be significantly harder for the weapon to strike the vulnerable, broad side of the hull. It was a gamble, a desperate plea to fate. Around the wounded carrier, her escorting destroyers and cruisers unleashed a furious barrage, firing everything they had. The air above and the water around Yorktown became a maelstrom of gunfire, tracer rounds arcing through the sky, and geysers of spray erupting from near misses. They managed to shoot down several of the attacking planes, their fiery wreckage plummeting into the churning sea. But it was not enough. The sheer volume of the assault, the determination of the pilots, proved overwhelming. Then came the impacts. 2 torpedoes, launched with devastating accuracy, slammed into Yorktown's port side less than a minute apart. The first hit with 6 blasts were catastrophic. They ripped open vast underwater sections of the hull, creating gaping wounds that instantly flooded the critical boiler and generator rooms. The sheer concussive force of the explosions also jammed the rudder, rendering the ship nearly uncontrollable. The Yorktown, once a symbol of American naval power, began to slow, her colossal engines losing power, and immediately listed hard to the left. Below decks, men were violently knocked off their feet, thrown against bulkheads as the ship shuddered and lurched. Water, cold and unforgiving, rushed into the ship's vital compartments faster than anyone could possibly hope to contain it. All steam pressure, the very lifeblood of the carrier, died, and the massive engines that turned her propellers ground to a halt. The ship was dead in the water, a sitting target. For a fleeting moment, a spark of hope ignited. The emergency diesel generator, deep in the ship's stern, roared to life, valiantly attempting to take over the electrical load. But the damage was too profound. The main circuit breakers, overwhelmed by the chaos, snapped open and stubbornly refused to stay closed. Damaged wiring, severed and shorted by the explosions, created a cascade of electrical failures. Every time the emergency generator tried to send power through the ship's ravaged systems, the automated safety protocols, designed to prevent catastrophic fires, immediately shut it down. With no electricity, the pumps, essential for fighting the relentless ingress of water, could not run. Without functioning pumps, the rising tide within the ship's hull could not be slowed, let alone stopped. The tilt to the left, the ominous list, steadily worsened, passing 20 degrees. From the central station, deep within the ship's belly, the grim report came. There was no way to correct the list with the meager power they had left. The ship was dying. Captain Buckmaster now faced the kind of agonizing choice every naval captain dreads, a decision that would forever haunt his waking hours. Hundreds of men were still below decks, trapped in the darkness, fighting a losing battle against the encroaching water, desperately trying to stem the inevitable. Many others stood crowded on the open decks, gazing out at the vast, indifferent ocean, their faces etched with fear and uncertainty. As the tilt pushed past approximately 25 degrees and continued to grow, the terrifying reality set in. There was a very real, imminent chance that the Yorktown could suddenly, catastrophically, roll over. If that happened, the men trapped deep inside the labyrinthine passages of the ship would never escape. They would be entombed alive in a metal coffin, dragged down to the crushing depths. And those on deck, would be violently flung into the oily, debris-filled water. A treacherous mix of fuel, wreckage, and the dead. A chaotic grave in the making. The weight of all those lives, all those futures, rested squarely on Buckmaster's shoulders. After a moment of profound, silent contemplation, a shared understanding passed between Captain Buckmaster and his damage control officer. Their eyes met, and they reached the same inevitable conclusion. Some battles, however valiantly fought, are simply unwinnable. And sometimes, the ultimate act of leadership is not to fight to the last, but to preserve what can be saved from the jaws of oblivion. Late in the afternoon, as the sun began its descent, casting long, weary shadows across the Pacific, the order came. A command no naval captain ever wishes to utter, nor any crew to hear. Abandon ship. It was a stark declaration of defeat, a surrender to the overwhelming forces of war and the unforgiving ocean. Yet, even in that moment of profound crisis, the crew of the USS Yorktown did not panic. Their training, forged through countless drills and the crucible of combat, held firm. Discipline, a bedrock principle of naval life, prevailed. Sailors, moving with an almost eerie calm, descended ladders, their footsteps echoing softly on the steel. They traversed the deck, now tilted precariously, a vast, unforgiving slope leading to the churning sea below. In long, orderly lines, they clambered over the side, a testament to their unwavering resolve. Makeshift aids, hastily rigged from the edge of the flight deck, offered a precarious lifeline. Bucknets and cargo slings dangled, providing a desperate grip for men making their descent into the unknown. Nearby, a flotilla of destroyers and cruisers, their own crews watching with grim determination, backed in as close as they dared, pushing the boundaries of safety to pluck men from the water. They moved with an urgent precision, their decks becoming havens for the scores of survivors. One destroyer, the USS Anderson, performed an extraordinary feat, taking more than 200 men out of the frigid embrace of the sea. It was a testament to the unspoken brotherhood that binds sailors in the face of disaster. Captain Elliot Buckmaster, the Yorktown's commanding officer, remained. A captain goes down with his ship, not in a suicidal gesture, but as a final act of leadership and responsibility. He walked through his stricken command one last time, a solitary figure navigating the groaning, wounded vessel. His mission? To ensure that no one, no living soul, remained trapped within her steel confines. Only when he was certain, when the last search was complete, did he climb down into the sea himself, leaving behind the ship that had been his world. By early evening, the USS Yorktown lay alone, a desolate silhouette on the vast ocean. She was badly damaged, her superstructure scarred, smoke still curling from deep within her hull. She listed heavily, a testament to the grievous wounds inflicted upon her. But remarkably, impossibly, she was still afloat. As night descended, cloaking the scene in an oppressive darkness, something unexpected happened. The ship, defying all expectations, did not roll over. She did not sink. Through the long, dark hours, she drifted on the surface, a wounded leviathan, but undeniably still alive. By the morning of June 5th, a faint hope began to stir. Observers on the rescue ships, their binoculars scanning the horizon, noted a miraculous sight. Her tilt had not worsened significantly. Then came the report that sealed their conviction, a patrol plane flying a reconnaissance mission confirmed the impossible. The Yorktown was still floating. It was enough. For Admiral Frank Jack Fletcher and Captain Buckmaster, it was more than enough. If the ship, against all odds, was fighting for her own survival, then they, her crew, would fight to save her. The very next day, a volunteer team, driven by an extraordinary sense of duty and a fierce loyalty to their ship, went back aboard. Roughly 30 officers and well over 100 enlisted men formed the salvage party, a testament to the unwavering spirit of the American sailor. The task was monumental, almost inconceivable. The fleet tug Vario began the arduous process of towing the crippled carrier, inch by agonizing inch, at a slow, deliberate pace. Alongside her, the destroyer USS Hammond tied up, a lifeline of steel and resolve. Through heavy hoses and thick cables stretched between the two ships, the Hammond provided vital power, fresh water, and crucial extra pumps, a desperate transfusion of life into the dying carrier. The objective was clear yet daunting: to prevent the carrier from rolling over and to keep her afloat long enough to reach safer waters, a protected harbor where more extensive repairs could be attempted. The salvage teams, working with a relentless urgency, began a desperate effort to reduce weight from the high side of the listing ship. Unused planes, their wings now useless, were unceremoniously pushed over the side. Even some anti-aircraft guns, once instruments of defense, were sacrificed to the sea, their weight deemed too critical. Simultaneously, a delicate and dangerous operation commenced: counterflooding. Carefully, methodically, they began to let water into compartments on the starboard side of the ship, the opposite side to the existing damage. This precise, controlled flooding was a perilous balancing act, designed to counteract the severe flooding on the port side and slowly, painstakingly, bring the ship back to an even keel. Deep within the hull, a fire, still smoldering from the initial attacks, posed a constant threat. The Hammond's powerful pumps and fire hoses were brought to bear, battling the persistent blaze, pushing back against the encroaching inferno. Slowly, with agonizing slowness, the list began to diminish. Men who had believed the Yorktown was beyond saving, who had resigned themselves to her loss, began to harbor a fragile, nascent hope. They began to think perhaps, just perhaps, they might actually pull off the impossible. But the Japanese, ever vigilant, had not forgotten her. Submarine I-168, dispatched to the Midway area during the heat of the battle, had been patiently stalking its prey. Guided by earlier reconnaissance reports from seaplanes and the careful, almost imperceptible glances through her periscope, her captain, Lieutenant Commander Yahachi Tanabe, skillfully slipped through the American escort screen on the afternoon of June 6th. He aimed at the massive, vulnerable target, the Yorktown and the Hammond, tied together in their desperate struggle for survival. He fired 4 torpedoes. One struck the Hammond near her middle. The impact was catastrophic, immediate. The destroyer, a vessel of steel and courage, broke almost in 2, her back shattered. Within minutes, she plunged beneath the waves, taking with her the lives of many brave men. A stark, brutal reminder that even in moments of hope, the war's unforgiving hand could strike again. The ocean, a silent witness to both triumph and tragedy, claimed another victim, leaving behind only the lingering question of fate and the enduring human will to defy it. As the vessel plunged into the abyssal depths, her own defensive mechanisms turned against her. The barrel-shaped anti-submarine bombs, known as depth charges, stored precariously on her stern, detonated in a series of violent, concussive blasts beneath the surface. These underwater explosions, intended for the enemy, instead ripped through the water, killing and wounding many of her own men, now struggling for survival in the unforgiving sea. Eventually, a grim tally emerged. 81 souls from the Hammond's crew of approximately 241 would perish that day. Meanwhile, the beleaguered Yorktown suffered further catastrophic blows. 2 additional torpedoes, launched with chilling precision, tore into her starboard side. These new impacts struck directly opposite the earlier grievous torpedo damage on her port side, creating a symmetrical nightmare. The fresh breaches unleashed torrents of seawater into compartments already compromised, flooding spaces in a hull that was now effectively torn open on both flanks. The sheer force of these new explosions violently knocked salvage crews off their feet, men who had been toiling ceaselessly, their faces grimed with sweat and oil, to save their ship. New seams groaned open under the immense strain, and much of the meticulous, painstaking balancing work they had performed throughout the day, an intricate dance against the encroaching sea, was utterly undone. With water now pouring in from both sides of the colossal warship, the small, exhausted salvage team, their faces etched with despair, simply could not keep pace. The fight was lost. The inevitable, heart-wrenching order was issued once more. Abandon ship. The tugboat Vireo, a steadfast sentinel in the chaos, cut its towline, its mission to stabilize the carrier now futile. Escort vessels, their decks crowded with anxious sailors, moved in swiftly, their searchlights piercing the gloom, to pull survivors from both the ill-fated Yorktown and the shattered Hammond out of the frigid, oil-slicked waters. Yet, even after this final, desperate evacuation, the Yorktown refused to yield immediately. Through the long, agonizing night of June 6th and into the early dawn hours of June 7th, she still clung to the surface. She floated, a ghost of her former self, though noticeably lower in the water, her proud silhouette now listing with a more pronounced lean to port. As the first faint rays of sunrise began to paint the eastern sky, lookouts, their eyes strained from lack of sleep, watched in horror as her list began climb rapidly, inexorably. There were no more pumps to stem the tide, no more tugs alongside to offer support, and no one left on board, no human soul, to fight the relentless, consuming sea. A little before the full ascent of the sun, the mighty carrier, a symbol of American naval power, rolled slowly, majestically onto her port side. For a fleeting moment, she exposed the massive, gaping underwater tear in her starboard bilge, a testament to the brutal violence she had endured. Then, with a final, mournful sigh, she slid stern first beneath the surface, vanishing into waters more than 3 miles deep. Her battle flag, a defiant splash of color against the vast, indifferent ocean, was still flying proudly at the masthead as she made her final descent. It was a poignant, enduring image for those who witnessed her demise. Estimates suggest that approximately 141 officers and men from the Yorktown's crew perished in the battle and subsequent sinking, a tragic toll that compounded the dozens of sailors already lost from the Hammond. In the 1940s, engineers and investigators, grappling with the profound loss, could only piece together the narrative of her final moments from fragmented memories, hurried sketches, and external photographs. The true, intimate clues to the dynamics of her demise, how the water moved through her intricate compartments, how the complex wiring systems failed under stress, and precisely what the crew was doing in those desperate final minutes remained far below them. These answers resided with the battered hull, resting nearly 3 miles down in the perpetual, crushing darkness of the abyss. That silent, submerged ship would guard her secrets for more than half a century. Her profound mysteries, locked away by the ocean's immense pressure and impenetrable gloom, awaited a new generation, new technologies, and new eyes to finally reach her. The quest for truth, for the secrets found on the ocean floor, is a powerful human drive. Far to the northwest of Midway, the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean appears deceptively calm and utterly ordinary. Nothing on the shimmering surface, no ripple or swell, hints at the profound secret hidden just a little more than 3 miles straight down. Beneath this tranquil veneer, an American aircraft carrier, a titan of steel and valor, lies silently parked on the seabed, a monument to a forgotten battle. The Yorktown rests there, on a flat, featureless plain of mud, in waters so profoundly deep that no human diver, no matter their skill or courage, can ever reach her. The environment is utterly alien. The water temperature hovers perilously close to freezing. The hydrostatic pressure is hundreds of times greater than at the surface, capable of crushing almost any human endeavor. And there is an absolute, eternal absence of sunlight. For decades after her dramatic sinking, a period stretching over 50 years, no human gaze ever fell upon her again. This profound, enduring solitude began to change only in the late 1990s, when the relentless march of technological innovation finally began to bridge the impossible gulf between the surface and the deep. The ocean, it seems, always yields its secrets, but only on its own terms and in its own time. The abyss holds secrets, swallowed whole by the ocean's unyielding embrace. For decades, the wrecks of Midway, monuments to one of history's most pivotal naval battles, lay hidden, their stories whispered only by the deep. It was a challenge that beckoned a singular vision, that of ocean explorer Robert Ballard, a man whose name is synonymous with uncovering submerged history. In a momentous collaboration with the United States Navy and the venerable National Geographic Society, Ballard embarked on an ambitious quest to pierce the veil of the Pacific and locate these lost titans. His team deployed sophisticated sonar arrays, sweeping the vast, featureless expanse of the seafloor northwest of the Midway Atoll. Hour after hour, the acoustic pulses probed the darkness, mapping the topography of a world unseen. Then, amidst the undulating contours of the abyssal plain, a distinct anomaly registered. A large, flat, and unmistakably man-made target. A tremor of anticipation ran through the control room, a silent acknowledgement that something profound might lie beneath. To confirm this tantalizing signal, they lowered a remotely operated vehicle, a pioneering robot tethered by a cable, equipped with powerful lights and high-resolution cameras. This technological marvel, a harbinger of future deep-sea exploration, was their proxy, their eyes and hands in an environment utterly hostile to human life. In May of 1998, as its powerful beams pierced the perpetual gloom, a breathtaking sight materialized. The darkness receded to reveal a colossal, elongated flight deck, its vast expanse stretching into the murky distance, crowned by the unmistakable silhouette of an island superstructure rising majestically from one side. There was an audible gasp in the control room. The USS Yorktown, an icon of American naval might, had been found. The sheer scale and condition of the wreck surprised almost everyone. Against all expectations, the mighty aircraft carrier lay largely upright, canted gently to starboard, yet remarkably intact. Its immense hull, a testament to wartime engineering, remained a single, cohesive structure, defying the crushing pressures of the deep. The island's superstructure, the nerve center of the warship, was astonishingly clear, its every detail recognizable, a ghost of its former glory. The expansive flight deck, once a hive of activity, stretched forward, a frozen runway leading into the void. Even after more than 50 years submerged in the frigid, oxygen-depleted waters, patches of original paint clung stubbornly to the steel, and numerous deck fittings remained eerily visible, preserved by the profound depth. However, the technology of deep-sea exploration in the late 20th century, while revolutionary, was still in its nascent stages. At an astonishing depth of more than 16,000 feet, every minute spent on the bottom exerted immense strain on the robot and its umbilical cable, a fragile lifeline connecting it to the surface world. Ballard's team could meticulously circle the colossal hull, meticulously mapping the island and fixing the ship's precise position, but the inherent limitations of their equipment prevented deeper penetration. They could not safely maneuver the robot into the vast hangar bays, nor could they descend into the dark, cavernous elevator wells. The ship's interior, its innermost secrets, remained shrouded in an impenetrable darkness. For the next 25 years, that external view, a tantalizing glimpse of a fallen giant, was all humanity had of the USS Yorktown. Yet the relentless march of technological innovation continued. In the intervening quarter century, underwater robots evolved with astonishing speed and precision. Thrusters, once rudimentary, became exquisitely precise, allowing for unprecedented maneuverability in the most challenging currents. Cameras, once grainy and limited, grew sharper, capable of capturing every minute detail with breathtaking clarity. Crucially, the advent of fiber optic cables revolutionized data transmission, enabling live, high-definition video feeds to stream directly from the crushing depths to the mothership, transforming exploration from a series of educated guesses into a real-time visual odyssey. By the early 2020s, the dream of conducting long, careful, and comprehensive surveys at depths that once permitted only fleeting, hurried passes had finally become a realistic endeavor. The stage was set for a new chapter in the Yorktown story. In September of 2023, the exploration ship Nautilus, operated by the esteemed Ocean Exploration Trust, with vital support from the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and the United States Navy, arrived over the hallowed grounds of the Midway battlefield. From her deck, a new generation of robotic explorer, named Atalanta, began its slow, deliberate descent, plunging to a staggering depth of more than 16,600 feet. For many hours, Atalanta meticulously explored the Yorktown's resting place, a testament to the endurance of modern robotics. Around the carrier, Atalanta flew in slow, overlapping paths, its cameras capturing every inch of the hull, the intricate details of the island superstructure, and the defiant rows of anti-aircraft gun tubs lining the deck edge. Many of these silent sentinels, their barrels still pointed skyward, remained frozen in time, aimed at an enemy that had long since vanished. On one particularly significant pass, Atalanta's cameras peered through a gaping opening into the ship's vast hangar bay. There, amidst the shadows, a distinct shape emerged, a tantalizing glimpse that the team a powerful indication of what more lay hidden within. But this mission, focused primarily on comprehensive external mapping, meant that this profound question, this new mystery, had to patiently wait for another expedition. The answer, as so often happens in the relentless pursuit of knowledge, came 2 years later. In April of 2025, the NOAA ship Okeanos Explorer, a vessel specifically designed for deep-sea investigation, returned to the Yorktown. This mission, aptly named Beyond the Blue, was meticulously planned to delve deeper, to push the boundaries of understanding. Operating within the remote and pristine northwestern section of the Papahanaumokuakea Marine National Monument, a protected sanctuary of unparalleled biodiversity, the Okeanos Explorer carried a new flagship robot, Deep Discoverer. This heavy-duty vehicle, engineered for the most extreme depths, represented the pinnacle of current deep year. Almost motionless, a feat of engineering that allowed for unprecedented stability, it could ease through incredibly narrow openings, navigating the intricate internal architecture of the wreck with a delicacy previously unimaginable. And, crucially, it could transmit back live, high-definition video, unveiling the Yorktown's innermost secrets in breathtaking clarity. The ship, once a symbol of wartime might, now became a silent library, ready to surrender its untold stories to those with the patience and technology to listen. And so, the relentless human drive to understand, to witness, to connect with the past, continues its profound descent into the silent depths. Far beneath the crushing weight of the ocean, where sunlight never penetrates, lies a silent sentinel, the wreck of the USS Yorktown. Here, in the abyssal darkness, a delicate dance of exploration unfolds. Under stringent agreements forged with the United States Navy, the work undertaken was strictly non-intrusive. The advanced remotely operated vehicle, Deep Discoverer, was permitted only to observe and meticulously record. Nothing, absolutely nothing, would be salvaged or removed from this sacred war grave. After an arduous, hours-long descent through the inky, pitch-black water, the submersible finally reached the seafloor, a desolate landscape of silt and shadows. Deep Discoverer then navigated with extraordinary precision towards a massive rectangular opening in the Yorktown's colossal hull. This was no ordinary breach. It was one of the aircraft elevator shafts, a vital artery that, in the carrier's operational life, had ferried warplanes between the hangar deck and the flight deck above. Now, transformed by the ravages of war and time, it stood as an eerie, gaping doorway into the very heart of the ship, a portal to a submerged past. As the robot, guided by unseen hands thousands of feet above, gracefully slid down along the shaft wall, its powerful lights pierced the eternal gloom, illuminating the decaying steel. And then, a sight emerged that stunned the entire team monitoring the feed. Something nobody had anticipated seeing with such astonishing clarity. There, emblazoned across the curved steel, was a colossal world map, a vibrant ghost from a bygone era. Roughly 42 feet long and approximately 12 feet high, it bore the proud title, A Chart of the Cruises of the USS Yorktown. Across its surface, colored lines meticulously traced the carrier's extensive routes, both before and during the tumultuous years of the war. Sailors who had served aboard the Yorktown had known of the mural's existence. Fragmented glimpses of it had appeared in grainy, black-and-white photographs taken decades ago. Yet, for more than 80 years, no one had seen the complete painting. Nor could anyone confirm if this monumental work of art had even survived the catastrophic sinking that sent the carrier to her watery grave. Its rediscovery, so vividly preserved, was a profound moment, a direct connection to the men who had lived and fought on this very vessel, a poignant testament to their spirit and their journeys. The sheer scale and detail, still visible after all this time, offered an intimate glimpse into the ship's operational history, painted by the very hands that served her. Once the mural was fully documented and recorded in exquisite detail, Deep Discoverer painstakingly eased itself out of the elevator shaft and into the vast, cavernous expanse of the hangar itself. The pilots, their hands steady on the controls, moved the submersible with excruciating slowness, their eyes glued to the monitors, meticulously watching for any stray cables or structural clearances. At this immense depth, a single snag, a momentary lapse in concentration, could spell the end of the dive, entangling the robot irrevocably in the wreck's skeletal remains. Bit by bit, the cameras pushed onward, navigating past twisted beams, loose structural elements, and the debris of war, until they finally broke through into the open hangar space. And there, on the deck below, they beheld a sight that earlier, less advanced missions had only speculated about. Sitting remarkably in place, as if awaiting their next sortie, were at least 3 Douglas SBD Dauntless dive bombers. These were the very aircraft that had played such a pivotal role in turning the tide of the war in the Pacific. One of the Dauntless aircraft lay inverted, its landing gear pointing skyward, a silent testament to its violent descent. Its wings, though bent and distorted, still retained their distinctive shape, an unmistakable silhouette of wartime ingenuity. And beneath its belly, still securely locked into its bomb cradle, was a bomb that had never been released. A chilling, frozen moment in time, a weapon destined never to find its target. Another Dauntless, though partially obscured by silt and marine growth, displayed faint but undeniably readable markings. The stark letter B and the number 5 emblazoned on its fuselage, with another prominent 5 visible on the upper surface of its wing. Aviation records, meticulously preserved across the decades, linked that specific code to Bureau number 4581, identifying it as a Dauntless from Bombing Squadron 6, originally assigned to the carrier Enterprise. This particular aircraft, through the exigencies of battle, had landed on the Yorktown during the ferocious Battle of Midway. Until this moment, knowledge of these iconic Midway-era aircraft was largely confined to faded old photographs and a handful of carefully restored museum pieces. To find them here, preserved in their combat environment, was an unparalleled discovery, offering a direct, tangible link to the heroism and sacrifice of that decisive engagement. Then, the cameras picked up something else entirely, an anomaly that defied all expectations, something nobody had anticipated finding amidst the grim relics of war. Among the scattered debris and the silent machinery in the hangar, a 4-door station wagon sat incongruously, its distinctive wood panel sides, boxy body, and a spare tire mounted on the back, clearly discernible. Scraps of chrome still traced the elegant lines of its bumper and grille, remnants of a bygone era of civilian transport. Even beneath layers of silt and marine growth, experts could identify the unmistakable features of a 1940 or 1941 Ford Super Deluxe Woody Statville bases and ports. Its presence here, so far from any road, deep within the belly of a sunken warship, was a perplexing and deeply humanizing detail, a stark reminder of the mundane lives intertwined with the machinery of war. The Yorktown, once a titan of the seas, now rests as a profound time capsule, a silent archive of a pivotal moment in human history. Each artifact, from the grand hand-painted mural to the humble, unexpected station wagon, offers a tangible echo from a past that refuses to be forgotten. These discoveries do more than merely fill gaps in historical records. They breathe life into the stories of those who served, reminding us that even in the deepest, darkest abysses, the human spirit, its triumphs and its sacrifices, continue to resonate, speaking volumes across the vast expanse of time. Perhaps the most perplexing artifact, a land vehicle, suggests a singular narrative, that town itself. Its presence implies it traveled with the colossal warship, intended for use only when the vessel reached solid ground. Yet no definitive record has emerged to connect this specific automobile to the wreck, leaving its purpose shrouded in a compelling mystery. So significant is this enigma that the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, has actively engaged automobile historians and the broader public, urging them to meticulously study the deep-sea images. For now, this wood-sided station wagon remains one of the site's most peculiar and enduring questions. The Deep Discover submersible, meanwhile, meticulously drifted along the periphery of the vast wreck, its cameras capturing every scar and surrounding detail with astonishing clarity. The footage reveals immense craters punched into the flight deck, stark evidence of the battle's ferocity, and areas around the elevator openings where the structure had collapsed inward under unimaginable force. Along the hull, metal plates were visibly bent and pushed in, direct impact points where torpedoes had struck with devastating power. Many anti-aircraft gun mounts remained eerily bolted in place, their barrels frozen forever in their last, desperate firing angle. All of this lies in the abyssal depths, a realm characterized by its crushing cold, perpetual darkness, and, critically, a profound lack of oxygen. These extreme conditions, scientific studies confirm, dramatically slow the processes of corrosion compared to warmer, shallower seas. This unique environment helps explain the astonishing preservation. Paint still clings stubbornly to bulkheads, the vibrant mural still displays its clear, original colors, and even the chrome on the station wagon still reflects the submersible's lights, a ghostly gleam in the eternal night. Yet, even here, the relentless march of time and nature continues. Rust growths, fine sediment, delicate tube worms, swaying anemones, and the ethereal pulse of a bright red jellyfish slowly, inexorably transform this once mighty warship into an integral part of the deep-sea ecosystem. It is a profound testament to both human endeavor and the ultimate, humbling power of the ocean to reclaim all that falls within its grasp.